The annual winter family dinner was in full swing inside my parents' opulent mansion, a place where status was counted not in kindness or connection, but by office floors and job titles. I sat quietly at the far end of the massive dining table, quietly listening as the rest of my family boasted about their positions within Winter's Industries, the business my grandfather had built from the ground up. "We've hit another record-breaking quarter," my brother James declared, casually adjusting the CFO badge stitched into his suit like a medal. Of course, some of us actually show up to the office to make that happen. That jab was unmistakably meant for me, the so-called failure who'd left behind a vice president title 3 years ago, the one who had chosen to work from home, abandoning the corporate grind they still worshipped. "Emily's sweetheart." My mother's tone oozed with artificial concern. "You're still doing that. What do you call it again? Remote advising?" "Something like that," I murmured, barely lifting my eyes from my phone. A message blinked on the screen. Final documents ready for signature. Operation Winterstorm is a go. My father took a slow sip of his aged scotch and said, "You know, there's still a role waiting for you at Winters if you ever want to come back to the real world. Something simple, HR, maybe marketing." Charlotte, my sister-in-law, chuckled, "Although you'd have to show up wearing something more professional than that." She motioned dismissively toward my black sweater and plain slacks, her designer outfit glittering under the chandelier. If only they knew these were the same clothes I had on when I finalized the secret acquisition of the majority stake in their company. "I like working from home," I said softly. "It suits me." James scoffed. "Calling whatever it is you do style is generous. While you're playing at being a businesswoman, we're managing a company worth billions." I had to stifle a grin. He had no idea that documents waiting for my signature would soon make me the owner of that billion-dollar enterprise. "So tell us," Charlotte said with mock curiosity, "how much does a remote consultant actually make?" "Enough for a real office." "I do well," I replied evenly, thinking about the private office in my penthouse that overlooked the entire city, a space they'd never care to ask about. Another buzz from my phone. Stock acquisition finalized. Proceed to final step. "Well then," my father said, lifting his glass high, a toast to Winter's Industries. A real company led by people who understand tradition, discipline, and proper corporate values. Ironically, those same traditions had made the business easy to infiltrate, gaps in their structure wide enough for someone like me to slip through, unnoticed. James leaned forward. "Speaking of the company, we need to prepare for the board meeting next week. Not that Emily will be there. She's not on the board anymore. She's not even technically an executive," Charlotte added smugly. "Just what was it? Remote worker?" Then came the final message on my phone. "Miss Winters, transfer complete. You now hold 51% ownership of Winter's Industries. Congratulations." I took a calm sip of water, letting a small smile touch my lips. 3 years of calculated patience, allowing them to believe I had walked away in failure, all while building an empire in secret. "Actually," I said, setting down my glass, "I think I will attend this board meeting." The room froze. Even my father's scotch halted midair. James blinked rapidly. "You? But you're not even part of the company anymore." "About that?" I pulled out my tablet and opened the freshly signed documents. "Let's just say the landscape has shifted a bit." My father leaned in, confused. "What are you talking about?" "Perhaps now is a good time to mention that Shadow Peak Ventures just secured a controlling interest in Winter's Industries," I said smoothly. "Or more accurately, my company did." The stunned silence was exquisite. Sometimes, the best way to win isn't by proving them wrong with words. It's by buying out the kingdom they thought you weren't capable of ruling. And I had only just begun. The uproar that followed was nothing short of glorious. James knocked over his wine glass. Charlotte's composure cracked for the first time, and my father's face went an alarming shade of red. "What do you mean your company?" he barked, voice trembling. "Shadow Peak Ventures is a multi-billion-dollar investment firm." I replied calmly. "Yes," he said. "Exactly. That firm." I met his stare evenly. "The firm I built while you all assumed I was tinkering with some side hustle from my apartment. My mother clutched at her pearl necklace, an old nervous tick from her days as a socialite. That can't be. You haven't done anything significant in 3 years. I turned the tab around and scrolled through the files. Actually, I've been extremely busy building a private investment empire, acquiring undervalued companies, and waiting while Winters Industries made every mistake I predicted it would. James shot to his feet, so fast his chair slammed backward onto the floor. This is insane. Shadow Peak is run by someone named E.W. Stone. I smiled, by my professional alias. Did it never occur to any of you to question what those initials meant? Their silence was answer enough. Emily Winter Stone. I said, clearly, I use Mom's maiden name for business. Didn't want nepotism accusations getting in the way of my success. Another buzz. Legal team ready to initiate executive restructuring. Charlotte nervously tapped her designer heel on the marble tiles. But you wear sweatpants. You skip every gala. Because I was in Tokyo negotiating a billion-dollar merger, I replied without blinking. You'd be amazed how efficient business becomes when you stop caring about showing off at charity balls. James turned toward our father, his voice desperate. Dad, you have to stop this. She can't just walk in and take control. My father stared blankly at his phone, undoubtedly watching a storm of emails flood in from panicked board members. It's legitimate, he whispered. She actually did it. She bought out the company right from under us. And while you were laughing at my online business, I added coolly, I was building something far greater than Winters ever could be. Shadow Peak owns companies on 3 continents. Winters was just another calculated acquisition. My mother's voice cracked. But why, Emily? Why not tell us? I leaned back, my expression calm. I thought about every dinner where they belittled my work, every smug look when I said I work from home, every comment about how I was wasting my potential. Because, Mom, I said quietly, you never asked. You were all too busy assuming I failed to notice I was succeeding. So caught up in your titles and tailored suits that you never saw where real power actually lives. My phone glowed with a new alert. Emergency meeting requested by board. Whispers of leadership shakeups causing unrest. I rose slowly from my seat, brushing down my unassuming black sweater. I've got companies to manage. Several, actually, I said calmly. Tomorrow's board meeting should be quite the show. You can't just waltz in and take control. James shouted. For now, you're still the CFO. I replied quietly. But I'd take a good look at your performance files, if I were you. At Shadow Peak, promotions aren't handed out for sharing a surname. They're earned. Charlotte's expression faltered, her confidence draining. But the social functions, the parties, all executive positions will be evaluated based on actual contributions to the business. I continued. It's remarkable how much money a company saves when it stops funding pointless luxuries. Finally, my father found his voice again. Emily, please, let's talk about this as a family. Family? I repeated, arching an eyebrow, like when you all discuss my career decisions without me, or when you convinced the board I wasn't cut out for leadership. We were only trying to help. My mother offered, her voice brittle. No, I corrected, keeping my tone gentle but firm. You were trying to control. You wanted success to fit your definition, not mine. I gathered my things, ready to exit the dinner I had just shattered with the truth. By the way, James, I added, pausing on my way out, those impressive quarters you were bragging about, let's see how they look when someone with actual vision is in charge. The silence that followed me out was more satisfying than any dessert they could have served. Because true revenge isn't just about proving them wrong. It's owning the very legacy they believed you couldn't handle, and running it better than they ever did, all from the comfort of my own home. In sweatpants, naturally. The next morning, I stepped into the lobby of Winters Industries for the first time in 3 years. The security guard blinked, clearly surprised. He remembered the version of me that slinked in awkwardly during family obligations, not the woman who now walked in with confidence. Ms. Winters, he stammered, checking his clipboard. You're not listed for today. Look again, I said, handing him my new ID badge. Owner. The elevator ride to the top floor buzzed with murmurs. News of Shadow Peak's takeover had spread like wildfire, but few had made a connection to the disgraced daughter they once dismissed. I entered the boardroom 3 minutes before the emergency session began. James was already there, whispering urgently to a few nervous allies. Charlotte scrolled anxiously on her phone, probably monitoring her tanking shares. My father sat at the head of the table, a position he'd held for decades. "Good morning," I greeted. A hush fell across the room. Directors who once ignored me couldn't seem to look away. "You can't sit there," James snapped as I walked toward the seat at the head of the table. "That's the CEO's chair." "Exactly," I said, setting my laptop in front of me. "Dad, I think it belongs to me now." The way my father slowly stood, eyes wide, body stiff, made the past 3 years of being underestimated feel worth every second. I opened my device. "Let's begin with Shadow Peak's immediate plans." "Plans?" Charlotte echoed, her voice strained. "What kind of plans?" The first slide appeared on the screen. Winters Industries, Structural Overhaul Initiative. First, I began a full audit of executive roles will be conducted. Performance metrics, contribution history, and merit will guide all staffing decisions. No exemptions. James paled. "But we're family." "It's funny how that word suddenly matters when there's something to lose," I said coldly. "Was I family when you told the board I was emotionally unfit for leadership?" My phone buzzed. New acquisition targets ready for approval. Second, I continued, all non-essential perks are immediately frozen. Pending review. That includes private jets, company-sponsored spa retreats, and yes, Charlotte, the fashion stipend. She gasped like someone had stolen oxygen from the room. Third, I said, pausing for effect, we're moving to a modern workflow model. Remote work will be available to all eligible employees. That's not how a real business is run. My father interrupted. No, I said firmly, that's not how you ran it. While you clung to outdated practices, I built a global empire from a laptop in my living room. I clicked to the next slide. Shadow Peak Ventures, Holdings Overview. The numbers were staggering. That's in the billions, someone whispered. All grown from the office you all ridiculed. I replied. Turns out, you don't need a mahogany desk and a tailored suit to succeed. Just clarity, strategy, and determination. My father slumped deeper into his chair, clearly shaken. Why didn't you tell us? He asked softly. Would you have listened? I asked back. Or would you have tried to force me into your mold again? Because the most powerful advantage? Letting people underestimate you until they no longer can. My phone buzzed again. Global partners notified. Market share climbing. Stock up 30%. I stood, smoothing my sweater with steady hands. I have an empire to lead. Anyone who wants to be part of Winters Industries moving forward will need to embrace a performance-driven culture. My eyes locked onto James and Charlotte. For those who can't adapt, the severance packages are generous. As I turned to leave the room, I offered one final twist of the knife. Oh, and James? The break room coffee machine is empty. You might want to brush up on some new skills. The look on his face was a gift I'd cherish forever. Because sometimes the sweetest revenge isn't just seizing the family business. It's showing them they were never the gatekeepers of success. That you didn't need their approval, their labels, or their rules. You built something far greater in silence, in comfort, in your own way. And when you finally step into the light, it's already yours.